Hi, I'm Rob. Welcome to the Cotswolds Distillery and happy Earth Day. Today I'm here with Alice, who is the head of our production here at the Cotswolds Distillery, and we're going to be talking about our environmental treatment system. 10 months on.
Yes.
And what we're able to do with regards to dealing with our waste as a whiskey distillery. So 10 months in, you've managed to have 1,000 trees planted on top of the 2,000 willow trees and beehives. So as we're coming into summer, what do you anticipate for this entire landscape?
What I'm really excited to see, alongside the trees starting to kind of actually come up and grow shoots, is the wildflowers to come back. So a lot of the wildflowers that we planted are biannual. So what we see this year from the wildflower meadows may look very different from what we saw last year, as the cycle of different flowers pops up and comes down. And so I'm kind of excited to see what's different, what's the same. We'll definitely still see poppies and cornflowers and all those things, but it should look a little bit different as the site develops, and nature will kind of just take its course with that.
So the beehives, we have 4 of them, and we're very, very fortunate to have them. Tell us about them a little bit more.
Sure. So obviously with all of the wildflowers and all of the things that we've planted in this area, the next step is to make sure that we've got good pollinators in the area, and we've got the space for it. And as we know, pollinators are struggling at the moment. So being able to keep some bees on site and also to be able to sell the honey in our shop just kind of ties it all together and make sure that we're kind of completing that cycle, to keep both our wildflowers and the rest of the kind of wildlife happy.
So we're here on the platform that is in the middle of our environmental treatment system on a gorgeous day. We've got our 5 ponds, and they are commissioned and working right now on doing all of the hard work after distillation. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that process and what they're doing?
Sure. So the Wetlands Ecological Treatment System, it will treat out what we call white waters, which is the spent lees, i.e. the leftover liquid from a second distillation, and any kind of wash waters, things like that. So if we've rinsed a tank down or rinsed the floors, all of that is going to get combined into one of our distillery effluent tanks.
And this is the water that isn't really carcinogenic,
No.
any damage, it's not got a high alcohol volume.
No, so it's nil on alcohol really, and it's quite lightly contaminated, you'd say. Everything in there can be quite easily broken down by the series of plants and things that we've got here. So you can consider it still pretty much 99% pure water, so to speak, with a few contaminants.
And so goes from the distillery,
Sure.
pump it through a biofilter, and then once it arrives here, what's going on?
Okay, so from the biofilter, it will come up to what we call the top cells, and the top cells, there's 2 of them, and that's just to kind of spread the load. And it's basically going to go down a hill, so from the top cells to the middle cells and then to a bottom cell at the end. And each stage will have a different combination of plants that are designed to treat different contaminants in that water.
Wow.
So our sort of scientists who helped lead this project always said that in nature there's no waste. And it's very true because, as things get broken down in the top cell, you're going to have different compounds that make it to the next cell. And the organisms and the plants in there are then going to use that waste from the top cell and use that for energy and create new compounds. And so you do this kind of continuous iterative cleaning process as you break down bigger compounds into things that are much more acceptable for the environment.
So different plants at the top versus in the next 2. So we've got 5 ponds, 2, and then 1. The top 2 have plants that will take care of the initial compounds in the white waters versus different plants that will convert in the second. What happens after the second 2 ponds?
So the second 2 ponds then go into one kind of bottom pond, which is the final level of treatment. So as it kind of transfers through, the water is getting essentially cleaner and cleaner. And so by the bottom cell, it's just that kind of final kind of holding pool to make sure that, you know, everything's good. And from that bottom cell, it's then going to just travel to our willows. And those willows are designed or put in there to evapotranspirate the water, so to take up the water from the ground and send it essentially off into the atmosphere. And so that's kind of where that clean water ends up.
So all of this sounds amazing, and it's beautiful, but let's get down to actually what is going to be happening with our waste then. So how much of our actual wastewaters is going to come out here?
It's about half of everything that we would produce as wastewater is going to come out to here. So you could be looking at, you know, 50,000 litres a week.
And then obviously it's not just that we're taking care of. We have spent draft, so all of the grain that we've extracted the sugar from.
Yeah.
What happens with that after we're finished?
So the draft, this is a kind of a really nice thing about being in the area that we're in. We have a farmer literally a couple of miles up the road. You can probably see his farm behind us.
Yeah.
And he has cattle. So the farmers, Rob or Joe, his son, will come and pick up our draft in a trailer and feed it to their cows.
Amazing. And then of course there is the pot ale as well. So we can't just sort of skip over that. What do we do with the pot ale?
So the pot ale, because it's much more contaminated, it needs a little bit more care and attention than these wetlands can give it. We send that off to an AD plant, an anaerobic digestion plant, and that means it gets basically converted into biogas, so for use in other industries. So that's got a kind of regenerative journey as well.
This is the liquid that will actually be fed into these top ponds. These are the white waters,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, not very white, but
Yep.
yeah. And then by the time they've gone through the top two ponds, the next two, and they finish
Yep.
in the bottom that will feed all the willow trees, this is what we end up with. That's incredible. And just this is through plants digesting all of the compounds to clarify and purify the water.
Yep.
And obviously, now that we're not pumping the white waters off the site and we're putting it through our environmental treatment system, how many tankers, how many actual industrial trucks are we not having on the roads here in Stourton in the Cotswolds every week?
So that will be about 2 to 3 trucks a week that we would have had to use to take away that white water. So 2 to 3 journeys a week.
Yeah, so that 100 to 150 trucks a year,
Yeah,
not
correct.
coming to our site, not coming through our sleepy little village.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So on site we've got wildflower meadows, and then we've added 4 beehives as well to pollinate those, and we've also planted 3,000 trees across the site. So we've planted a vast array of native species like these ones. These create mini ecosystems in their own right, offering food all year round for a vast array of animals. Oak and willow are your keystone species, and these are what we've heavily planted around. These attract things like moths and butterflies, starting off most food chains. So willows also support a vast array of animals, including insects. They act as early bloomers. Things like this pollen here acts as the first food for some of the insects that arise in the spring. In turn, now we've created this, we've got a lovely kind of nice ecosystem now supporting barn owls and red kites and munkjack deer.